Hey guys, Jeffrey from Headstrong Training Systems here. So today we're going to be taking a look at the bar path of the bench press, and in particular we're going to be closely examining how the bar path should move through space as you commit to the eccentric phase of the bench press. So what's really going to be useful for us today is using a side-on view, and basically we're going to be breaking down in depth of basically the J path. So how, when I'm in my starting position with the barbell locked out over my shoulders, how should the barbell move in order to get to my touch point on my chest. So basically, after I've set up into position, I've got my barbell unracked into the starting position. I'm going to break down the J path, so the eccentric phase of this bar path, into three segments. First of all, we're going to take a look at the initial break. So right now I'm in a locked out position, and basically the initial break is the first movement that I'm going to do in order to get the barbell moving down. Secondly, we're going to be going through the middle portion of the lifts about here. So you've performed the initial break, now you're starting to lower the barbell down, and then onto the third segment, how the barbell should be looking as we get onto touching the chest. So the first phase is the initial break, so trying to break at the elbows in order to get the barbell moving down. Now, this first phase here, we want to actually not necessarily promote forward movement, but we don't want to resist forward movement. Now, what I mean by that is I see a lot of people during this phase, what they do is they just drop that barbell straight down, as in they're trying to just move the barbell straight down. And then what tends to happen there as a result is that if this barbell is dropped straight down, it would basically either roll my forearms back or the touch point, and so the touch point will be very high up, almost at my neck area, and it's a very inefficient method to perform the bar path, because we know that the J path with that barbell, it's going to be that touch point on the chest is going to be lower down compared to our starting position, and so we need to essentially promote a method in order to get this barbell touch point lower down. And so what should be happening is at the initial break, we should see that a bit of forward movement occurs. And so this is more true for more close grip benches or more elbow tucked benches, where you see that in order to get them to lower touch point at the initial break, that barbell will actually move forward a bit. You see from a sternal angle, if you just take a look at this end cap of the barbell, you see that at the initial break, a bit of forward movement occurs. And this forward movement occurs basically to get the barbell into position. And so you see that following that phase from that middle portion, this trajectory will continue down, but it will decrease. So that forward movement will start to decrease, it will start to slow down. And then that way, when we get to the third section of touching onto the chest, it's just a straight drop down. And so hopefully from that side-on view, you guys can see that from say this is my initial starting position here, and this is my touch point on the chest, you see that there would need to be an element of forward movement of the barbell occurring. Similarly, like when we're squatting, you guys know that there will be an element of natural torso lean occurring, and so we like to have that lean occur at the start, and so it's able to be maintained throughout the entirety of the lift. Similar concept here with the bench press. We want to promote that forward movement at the start, so that at the bottom, when it's finishing off that lift, finishing off the eccentric phase, then we've got that forward movement, we're in perfect position over the chest, and from when we're over the chest in that final section, it can be a straight drop down. Because the problem with resisting that forward movement at the start and dropping straight down is two things will happen, like we've seen in the video. Either you'll be in a very flared out position, the barbell will drop straight down onto your neck and you really can't press from that position, or secondly, that overcorrection will occur at the bottom. And what I mean by that is what tends to happen is that you'll resist that forward movement at the start, resist, dropping straight down, and then in order to get to a lower touch point on the chest, you see that in that bottom phase, there's no room for forward movement to occur. So what happens is that forearm will tend to collapse forward and dump that barbell onto your chest, and that then becomes a very inefficient and difficult position to press out of. So what I mean by that is, people that are resisting that full movement at the start, trying to drop straight down, they get to here, they need to get that touch point lower. So what happens is that forearm dumps forward, goes in front of the elbow, and from here, it's a very inefficient position to press, because if I was to press straight up, the barbell will go away from me, and then what you have to do is you have to correct it to then press. So that's why we don't want to be really resisting that forward movement during that initial break, because then that causes problems later on, such as that dumping. So that's all from me today, guys. Hopefully that was helpful for you. Basically, we took a look at the side angle of the bench press bar path, what that curve should really be looking like. We see that we don't want to resist that forward movement at the initial break. That's actually natural, because we need that to get into a position, get over into our lower touch point on the chest that we need. So it's quite natural actually for you to see a bit of forward movement occurring at the initial break. Don't just go with it, don't resist it too much. And then what's most importantly is that in that final section where you are at that correct touch point, you can just drop straight down instead of either dumping forward or dumping backwards. Also, just before I wrap up the video, I want to make a little disclaimer that this kind of movement is more for a general bench press. Obviously, as you go to either ends of the spectrum, whether it be a wider group, more flared bench press technique, or a more close group or more tucked bench press technique, there will always be differences where you see with flared, you don't need as much of a lower touch point, so you don't need to promote that forward travel as much as you do for a tucked bench press. So obviously, movement pattern always exists on a spectrum, so that's something very important to consider when trying to analyze your technique. So that's all for me today, guys. Hope that was helpful for you. And I'll catch you guys next time. Take care.